My sisters and brothers in Jesus Christ, the readings of the day show us the effect of the abiding presence of God in His church and of His presence in each one of us. The first reading from the Acts of the Apostles tells how the Holy Spirit dwelling in the church helped the apostles to solve a major doctrinal problem about the Gentiles becoming Christians, which in fact shook the very foundation of the early church. The Gospel from St. John reminds us that the Holy Spirit abiding within us is our teacher and advocate and the source of our peace and joy. Jesus assures His followers that the Holy Spirit will come and instruct them in everything they need to know. Jesus tells, "Those who love me will keep my words, and my Father will love them, and we will come and make our home with them." My sisters and brothers, the story of the Bible is a story of God who longs to dwell with His people. In the Old Testament, we see in the Garden of Eden was a beautiful communion of the first parents with God. But sin of disobedience caused a rupture in the bonding between God and human beings. God still longed to live with His people. He accompanied the Israelites in their journey through the desert, being with them as pillar of cloud by day and pillar of fire by night. He also established His glorious presence among the people by dwelling in the ark of the covenant, which they carried with them all along their journey in the desert. Whenever people sinned, they felt the absence of God's presence among them. In His mercy, God sent prophets to invite people to return to His holy presence. Finally, in the fullness of time, God decided to dwell with man when the eternal Word took flesh and lived among us. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. He became Emmanuel, God with us. To perpetuate His continued presence, Jesus gave us His body and blood when He instituted the Holy Eucharist at the Last Supper, culminating the sacrifice on the cross and resurrection. Jesus reiterated this constant longing of the Lord by promising, "Those who love me will keep my word, and my Father will love them, and we will come and make our home with you." My sisters and brothers, Jesus wants to dwell very close to us. He longs to have a home in our hearts. But the true question is, do we make room for Him in our hearts? He promises to come and make home in our hearts if we love and keep His word. Friends, loving Him requires giving highest priority for His presence in our lives. Keep His word requires that we always follow His teaching and commandments in our day-to-day lives. Again, loving Him means to free our hearts from undue and inordinate attachment to persons, things, and worldly pleasures. Keeping His word means to go against one's own personal choices to pursue God's will. So let us live our Christian lives in such a manner that we can reflect God's divine touch by our words and deeds. Let us live with the conviction that we are not alone. You know, one of the great social and ethical problems of the time is isolation. It is said today approximately 25% of all adults live alone. Spouses, parents, and children often live as virtual strangers to one another. This is unfortunate because we never need to be alone. Jesus can always be present to us. He shares His joy with us and replaces the burden of guilt with freedom of forgiveness. He takes our griefs and turns into joy. We need only to allow Jesus into our lives to be rid of this loneliness. Oneness with Jesus is the gift we can give to our children, our friends, and all those who we see no purpose in their life. Let us help people in the unity with Jesus, a unity that will change their lives. May our celebration of the Eucharist enable and empower us to experience the abiding presence of Jesus in our lives and the lives of those with whom we live and work. Saint Anthony of Padua,